What's the greatest obstacle or challenge facing you on your path to becoming financially free? For most of us, it's the time it takes to even focus on it. We're so busy with our lives that we don't even know where to start. Come join Joey and I and the team in Nashville, Tennessee, August 9th through the 11th, as we break down the different ways that you can become financially free and introduce you to different strategies and speakers who can help you on that first step.
You have questions? This event is designed to give you the answers, to take action fast, to turn the decades it's taken us to learn this and turn them into days. Don't hesitate. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/live. And don't forget to use the promo code podcast to get a deep discount.
All right, gentlemen, we realize that a lot of people that listen to this show for the first time or so, they have been out of control as it relates to their financial picture. They have followed Willie Wall Street and all of the things, which was meaning, how can you give your money to Wall Street on a regular, consistent basis? How do they get to keep it for as long as possible? And how that they make it as hard as possible for you to get it back. Now, there are steps that we see people taken and have taken, including ourselves, to get in control. Ernie, I'll let you go first. Talk about at least one of those steps that someone can take to take back control of their financial situation.
Yep, I'll give you a very important step. Before I give it to you, let me give some contrast. What steps were people taking before? Maybe you've heard the expression, a hope and a prayer. Well, maybe what people were doing before was a wing in the sand. And what I mean is they were either winging it, right? Whatever seems right in the moment, whatever is very popular in the time, whether it be Bitcoin, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, that was a craze, Bitcoin or crypto mining, that's been popular. Certain stock investing, GameStop, right? You remember when that happened? Whatever just comes along, just wing it, right? We're not investors, we're gamblers. And by the way, not that any of those investments were bad, but if you're winging it, you're a gambler, and gamblers aren't good investors. So maybe you're winging it. Second thing is, if it's wing in the sand, maybe the second approach is that you put your head in the sand. Maybe that's your approach, and you have no financial strategy. You're going along saying, well, either one day I'm going to figure this out, or it's hopeless. Inflation is crippling. Home prices are so high. Interest rates are high. There's a bunch of crooks out there. It's not even worth getting in the game. So I'm going to worry about this later. I'm going to worry about it at all. I think those are two steps that people were taking. But here's the steps you can take. The steps you can take is to have a plan. And we've put together a process to give you a plan called the right next thing. We focus on 5 pillars, help you step through each one of the stages in those pillars so that you can get to the objective, which is financial freedom. When you get to the objective of financial freedom, which is when your passive income exceeds monthly expenses, and you've done all the things so that you set that up in a way where you're in control of that money, you understand what that money's for, you've put together defensive strategies to help keep it and protect it, well, then you can create a scenario for yourself where you're at durable financial freedom, where there's some margin and there's some safety around it. There's some hedge so that can be protected and passed down. When you get to that, well, durable financial freedom allows you to fill in the gap of what do you want out of life, where you're not dependent upon money, but maybe money can be enhancing your life. So the step that you can take is to have a plan. We call that the right next thing. And when you break that up into pieces, there's 2 challenges. Number one, you have to stay on the path. And the second step is you have to get through the path. And that just makes me think, I mentioned Old Testament a few minutes ago in New Testament Hebrews. There's a verse, and I don't mean to make this about money because it's not, but I think it's relevant. It says that for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant. And so the challenge is staying on the path, staying committed to the path. And what is one of the best ways to stay on the path is to be in good company of other people who are doing that with you. So the step is not only to have a plan, but to also be in good company of other people who are executing that plan with you, who might be a little bit ahead of you, who might be with you, might be a little bit behind you. They'll ensure that not only do you get on the path and stay on the path, but also that you get down the path to where you want to go.
I resonate with that. I just got off a call with my health coach, and she was talking a little bit about the fact that for the last couple of weeks, we've spent some time away down at the lake house. And she was asking me how my routine was, what were what was some area that maybe I wish that I could have improved. And I started talking about, I don't have a membership of a gym down there. And because I don't have that membership, I don't do my normal routine. I don't do this. I'm not doing this. And she looked me just square in the eye. This is like, this is bull crap. Like, this is on you. Like, you're the one who gets to choose the plan. You have not planned. That's all it is. You've done no planning. It's 100% on you. All you had to do was sit down and plan. Like, tell me one thing that you could do so that you would work out when you're at the lake. I was like, well, I guess I could call the gym that's down there and set up a membership and show up. She goes, and how hard is that? I was like, not hard. She's like, and why haven't you done it? I was like, and she's like, exactly. Let's just do it. Like, you're in charge of the process. Don't be a victim in the situation. Take action. And I think that's what you're saying, is that like most people feel out of control because they don't know what's going on, and they've never been the one who said, I'm going to create a plan. And I get that not everybody is financially gifted and understands all of the workings of the world, but you're the one who gets to make the decision to call the gym, right? In this situation, to call a coach and sit down and talk to them about your goals and figure out where you stand on that right next thing, pillar, in each one of those 5 pillars, and build it out. You are in control. I love that.
Yeah, most people don't know where to go, right? You maybe had a thought about the gym, but you didn't think through that plan. You didn't know where to go. You also didn't know what to do, right? Maybe the numbers that your health coach is looking at, they weren't as good as you had hoped. You didn't know what to do to make them better down there. And the third thing is maybe you didn't have anybody to do it with, right? Which is exactly what I'm saying. Where do you go? There are places like Wealth Without Wall Street who can point you to the destination that's worthwhile, can give you the plan, right? That's the steps. That's the plan, can give you the plan, and then can surround you with other people who can help make sure that you get down the path. I think that's exactly right. Good example, Russ.
Well, here's a real quick thing. I'll help you. If this is a struggle with you, go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call. And you have 2 options on there. It's going to ask you, hey, where do you need most help with right now? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you do. So maybe you're in a position, you're like, hey, I need to get my cash in a place that I can start using it to start building a plan to take the next step. And if that's your situation, click on the button that says set up a IBCA financial discovery call, right? Like, just click on that button. If you're like, hey, I got my money in a place that I know what to do with it, but I need to build out all of these other strategies and I want to figure out where I stand in relationship to that, click on the other one and you can have a discovery call about what our financial coaching model looks like and how you can participate. We've partnered with a company called Apex, and they handle all of these things and they utilize this 5-pillar strategy. So you can click on that and set up a call to talk through what that would look like. All right, Mark, I want to get you into the discussion here. Talk about one of the steps that someone can take to get them in control.
Education. Nelson Nash said it best. When you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. So education, if you're listening to this as you listen to this podcast, you've clearly demonstrated at least a curiosity of Wealth Without Wall Street. What is this podcast about? Or you're trying to find more information because you don't know what's going on, right? You don't know what you don't know until you know it. So finding out those other things, like Ernie said, surrounding yourself with people that maybe are further ahead or maybe even a little bit behind or right out on par, because even amongst your friends, I guarantee you, there's probably some creative ideas of things people are doing. And so when you start to get exposed to those ideas and you get that education, then you're going to start tickling other parts of your brain and figuring out, okay, how can I begin to implement this and get more control? Once I know that there might be a better way, I now know there's an opportunity, there's a better way to do some of these things. Okay, how do I start doing that? this is a great podcast to get you some good ideas. Free call, hop on a call. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's diagnose it through with you. Maybe we can point you in some right directions and you'll get some education out of that so that you'll now know what your right next thing could very well be. So education would be mine for steps to get in control.
So we wrote this book recently, and it was titled Wealth Without Wall Street, the 3 Steps to Financial Freedom Through Passive Income. So if you're looking for steps to get in control, shameless plug here, I'm gonna say, reach out to Amazon, buy a copy of this book, and read it. And in there, the 3 steps are what we've covered so far. Have a goal, set a goal, figure out what you're trying to accomplish, because without understanding of that, it's going to be really hard to know if you've actually made progress toward those goals. So you have to clearly set them out and then put them in front of you so that you know that that's what you want to accomplish every single day, right? For instance, if my goal, and it's not, is to have 6-pack abs, right? I better have a picture of myself, photoshopped with 6-pack abs and say, that's what I want. If that was my, physical goal, it's not. But let's just pretend that's what it is, since we were talking about exercise a second ago. Then that's what I need to have that physically in front of me so that I know that's what's going. So for you, what is that objective? Does it look like more time with your family? Does it look like more opportunity for you to switch jobs because you're in a job that you don't like? Is it an opportunity for you to go into ministry and bless others? Whatever your thing is, put that goal in front of you. Second thing is to have a plan. Build out the plan, as we talked about a second ago. Figure out the steps that are needed to get you to accomplish that goal. And there's one of the biggest things I've seen, and it helped me. The only reason we're having this conversation is I realized that I had to get my money in a position that I could access it. And that was utilizing the infinite banking concept. And by doing that, by having access to my money, now I could make choices that gave me opportunities to create passive income. And the planning part of that is that, man, every decision I make now with my money, I have to determine, does it create a passive income or does it reduce a monthly expense? Because that's the formula for financial freedom. The plan for me for financial freedom is having more passive income than I have monthly expenses. So when I understand that formula, I can take every step from this point forward to decide, is anything I'm doing not giving me a passive income or not reducing a monthly expense bad, right? So people say, well, Russ, why are you so negative on 401ks? I'm like, does it produce a passive income? They're like, no. I said, does it reduce a monthly expense? They say, no. And I go, well, then is it getting you closer to or further from financial freedom? And they go, further from? I was like, do you want to keep doing this? What else do you want to bring me up? Oh, what about paying off debt? Okay, great. Well, while I'm in the process of paying off debt, meaning that I'm making extra payments on mortgages or student loans or car loans or whatever, debt is bad. But in the process of doing it, is it producing a passive income? No. Is it reducing the monthly expense? No, not until it's paid off. Okay, so is it getting you closer to or further from? I guess further from. Like, they start to realize that the steps that they can take to get closer to control are by understanding simple formulas. And the third step in that book, so the first was goal, second step was plan, third step was support. What does that look like? It's being around mentors, it's being around peers, right? It's being around heroes. How am I participating on a regular basis in those 3 groups so that I have support? Support for me personally. Somebody's helping me with my plan. Somebody's helping me organize my cash flow so that I can use this infinite banking system. Somebody's who's helping me actually understand how to use the infinite banking system. How do I have support on what to do with it? How do I understand who I am as an investor? How do I have support around what masterminds I should participate in, which ones I shouldn't? All of those things, right? There's support. So if you're looking for steps to get out of the Wall Street game and get yourself into control, get you a copy of this new fancy book with an amazing cover with 2 new authors out there.
Tribe, listen up. We're entering into the election year. This is the time where people are going to get super fearful. We're going to see businesses start to dry up. We're going to see opportunities, though, pile up for us only if we're prepared.
That's right. You get to choose right now. Will you allow this time frame to negatively affect you and your business and your investments? Or will you be prepared to take advantage of these huge opportunities that come on the backside of this because you're prepared with cash?
Let's get our house in order. If you haven't already maximized the infinite banking concept in your life, here's the chance for you to start learning. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/IBC. Take our free webinar so that you can start getting equipped with the things that you need to know so that you can take action on this looming event.
All right, let's talk about the second point here, which is, okay, we've done those things. With taking control, what comes with that, Ernie? What comes with it? Now that I'm in control of my money, I've exited Wall Street. What's next?
Yep. What happens next is a conversation at Thanksgiving that maybe you want to have or don't want to have. It's a conversation with your neighbor or with your friend that goes something like, hey, either you told me or your wife told my wife that you're doing this. That's kind of cool. How's it going? And you say either it's going amazing, and they say, oh, good for you. And what they really mean is, I don't think I like this guy anymore. Or you say, here are some of the challenges that are happening. And that family member, that friend walks away and says, man, sounds like this guy's really struggling. This guy sounds kind of like he's failing in that endeavor. Whereas before, the conversation might be like, hey, how's your IRA doing? How's our buddy who's a financial planner that we were in the same fraternity with? How's he doing with your money? And you say either it's going good, as in that I didn't lose any money, or it's gotten really bad. I actually lost 20% last year. He lost 20% last year. And the conversation is reciprocated with, oh man, feels so bad for you. It's not your fault. It's his fault. You're just the victim. So the conversation changes from I get to be the victim in the situation when you're messing with Wall Street, somebody else's fault, to now you carry the burden and you either deal with the feelings of failure or you deal with the feelings of failure and other people consider you a failure. And that's just a tough place to be for any investor that's trying to grow, is the negative self-thoughts and maybe even the bad press that your family or your friends are given to you. That just comes with the territory, and it's difficult, but we have to get through it. That is, I think, a big part of the curse of control.
Mark, what do you think is the curse that someone may experience once they're in control?
I could see it going to not being able to let things go, becoming a micromanager, meaning now that I've gotten all this education, I understand all these things, nobody could ever do this as well as me. You think of like your traditional business owner, right? They've built this thing from the ground up, and what do? They work themselves to the bone because they want to maintain control. They can't fathom letting someone else come in and start to do things because they're never going to do it as good as them. And so to me, that is a curse, is not knowing when, not having the education, not having the clarity of knowing when you've done enough time building to know maybe now to really have control, I should have control over myself and take a step back.
I think up to this point, right? I remember when, I was a financial advisor, I was following my quote unquote own ideas, but all I was doing is just putting in money in the market. And to your point, Ernie, I was giving it to other money managers, or what we call, money babysitters, and they were supposed to do something with it, right? It was kind of like when I was a kid and I got in the car, my parents took me to the restaurant. I didn't pick the restaurant. They chose the restaurant. I maybe got to choose the food at the restaurant, but I didn't get to choose the restaurant. And I was like, okay, like it or not, didn't matter if they chose it. It was their deal. But when we moved out of the house, then we get to choose our own restaurants. Like now I'm in control, and now I have to do the research, and it's gotten significantly more interesting as time's going on, especially if I'm using the restaurant analogy, is that now I have 4 kids, and now I have to pick a restaurant that meets the criteria for 6 people, right? I feel the burden of all of that. Well, I think people who get in control of their money, now they figure out who they are as an investor, and they have the burden of picking the place where the money goes. And they have to go, oh, I have to do the due diligence on this, right? Like I don't just to get to hand it off to somebody initially. I have to be responsible, and that becomes pressure to them. Some people don't like it. Some people really want just the easy button. And if you're looking for the easy button, financial freedom is not easy, right? Like we say this all the time as we meet as a team, that the formula for financial freedom is easy, but the work to accomplish it is hard, right? But is it worth it? That's what we're looking for. So the curse of control is being responsible for all of those little pieces of the due diligence to understand where to put it, to set up accounts, to meet with attorneys, to meet with accountants, to have all of these things organized, right? All the things that the money babysitter supposedly was doing for you, you're responsible for that. Now, is that going to be the curse that prevents you from doing this and sends you back? Or to your point, Ernie, if somebody actually does that and it doesn't work, is the curse of going, oh no, I've just failed. It's over, right? I got access to my money. I took control of it. I picked this investment, maybe because I thought other people were doing it and it was a good idea, right? I think a lot of times the curse early on is that people really just haven't learned enough. They haven't really become better investors. As Robert Kiyosaki says, they're good or bad investments, good or bad investors. I don't think they have really become a good investor. Or maybe they got too cocky and something happened. Is the curse going to be that you made a decision, it failed, and you're going to now let that hang over your head for the rest of the time? You got to crawl back and go back to the thing you were doing before? Is that going to be the curse for you? All of these things have happened, and we've seen it. Like we've seen it happen. We've trained thousands of people in this process, and we know these little steps and some of these things that we can help give you frameworks around. But still, at the end of the day, we're not here to be money babysitters for you. Like, it's becoming your own banker. It's not us being your banker. It's you becoming your own banker if it's related to IBC, right? It's your financial freedom, not my financial freedom. Your financial advisor up to this point, it's been his financial freedom, meaning like every dollar that you give him, he makes money on it and he loves it. He's going to keep it. He's going to tell you everyth's great. Don't worry about it. It'll bounce back. That's the buy and hold strategy, is the buy, hold, and we collect fees strategy. All right. I'll get off that bandwagon. Let's talk about the third step, which we've hit on, the steps to get in control, the curse that comes with that control. But ultimately, can people, and if they do, how can they master or overcome that curse in your eyes, Ern?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a definitive point where it's, I mastered this, I've won, right? That sounds a little bit like the arrival syndrome, if you will. If we're talking a lot about IBC today, Nelson Nash points that out. So I don't know if you can master and overcome, but you can be mastering and you can be overcoming. It just makes me think about, I just finished this book called Shoe Dog. It's by Phil Knight, founder of Nike. Really enjoyed the book. Would have been a terrible, terrible book if he had just talked about present day Nike and all the great things that he thinks Nike's doing in the world. That would be pretty bad. Lame book. There were a few pages of that, but it was just a couple, and a couple 100-page book. The entire rest of the book was his story about the journey of building Nike. Now, if you've been a part of Wall Street, can you tell me all the amazing stories that you had relating around the financial statement that you got quarterly or one time a year from whatever brokerage account, investment account, retirement plan that you're in? How many great stories, memories do you have with your family and kids looking at those statements? I'm waiting. Whereas if you're on this journey of building wealth without Wall Street and you've taken control of your money and your investments, you might be building both of those things, your money and your investments. And that might create some stories, and those stories might turn into some chapters. And when we get close to the end, and we have been mastering and we have been overcoming this, we might look back and realize how much we've enjoyed the journey. And that's what I got from Phil Knight's story over about a 20-year period of him and the few people who are at the ground floor of building Nike, their relationships, their challenges, their travels, their experiences. And by the way, one of his big regrets was how little time he spent with his kids. We talk about that a lot on this show. So I think about this specific journey that I'm on, Russ, that you're well down the road of, Mark, you also. and the people in our community are looking to build businesses and investments that free up their time so that they can be with their families, if not include their families and the important people in their businesses and in their investments, so that when we get to the end and we've been mastering and overcoming, we don't add regrets to that, or we have as few regrets as possible. And I think that's how we do it. I would summarize it by we enjoy the journey and we do things that build us memories along the way.
Man, I love that. It made me think of a couple of things we talked about in the book, the 3 steps to freedom through passive income by Wall Street. This book I'm talking about. But you mentioned that we can't have this arrival syndrome. We demonstrate that in the book by the idea of, the more that we learn, the more that we grow, the more that we get clarity and have self-awareness, the more we realize that we don't know. It continues, and it requires us to continue to grow and learn. And the way that we overcome this is by always being willing to continue to learn. The best investments you will ever make are the investments in yourself, right? And when I hear people who are like, oh, I'm struggling, I don't have time, and we're like, hey, we're having an event coming up, you should come to it. In that event, not only will you get exposed to ideas and other speakers and strategies, but more importantly, you're going to get motivated by the people who are just like you, who are worse than you, who are ahead of you. They're going to help you dig out of this hole. And when people are like, oh, but I can't afford it, I say you can't afford not to, right? That's how you overcome it. You master by continuing to learn. Therein lies one of the big strategies to master and overcoming the curse, is knowing that it's going to be a constant process. So that's the other part that Ernie mentioned just a second ago. He talked about that financial freedom is about time freedom. It's about time with people and how Phil and I regretted not having time. Well, if that's your thing, then the way you overcome that is start measuring the amount of time that you have now. Mark, if I were to, measure the amount of time that you have now with the people that you love and the things that you get to do as compared to when you were working, flying airplanes, my guess is it's increased a little bit. Am I right?
What is strong to quite strong?
What is another way someone can master or overcome the curse in your eyes?
I want to take this to the control and financial freedom being more of a human problem. There are technical aspects. There are things that happen, but sometimes control really has to come back to a personal level. And if you can master control of yourself, of your emotions, of the way you react to certain situations, your quality of life is going to go through the roof, and your ability to handle and manage situations is going to become so much better. Example, about 2 years ago, I believe it was, there were many people who were involved in an investment that ended up being a literal Ponzi scheme. That singular event took a tremendous toll on a lot of people. What it did, though, was it highlighted a lot of challenges and setbacks for a lot of individual investors. And one of the takeaways that I had for myself personally was, I can't let this be a defining moment. I did the best I could. I did the research I could. I went through all the steps to try to manage my control of controlling this investment and looking at it. But the one thing that I couldn't control was a bad actor. And so now the next thing that I can control is, how do I react to that? How do I react as an investor? Because if you're listening, as you listen to this podcast, if you go down the road of passive income, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but not every at-bat is going to be a single or a home run. You're going to strike out a couple times, and it's going to happen. It's what do you do in that moment? Right? Batman, Bruce Wayne's father, said to him, why do we fall down? So that we can pick ourselves up. And that's the last piece of control I want to make sure you understand. How to master it and really work with it is master it within yourself so that you can handle those situations that otherwise might push you to make an irrash decision and impact your life in ways that you don't want it to.
That's so good. Mastering your emotion. It ultimately comes down to, if you have a plan, you follow the plan. You create the plan, not in emotion, right? You create it with logic. And there will be ups and downs along the way that will want to lend you to lean on that emotion. But if you have the plan and you have some peers and mentors and heroes around you to support you along the way that point you back to the plan, then you go, hey, I'm following the plan. The plan is designed and set up in a way to get you closer to financial freedom. That's following frameworks. That's continuing to learn. That's continuing to expose your opportunities. That's learning things that other people have done to become successful. It's learning how to think like the most successful businesses in the world, right? Like, I think too oftentimes people think too small. They just think in a little bitty small area as to how it affects them and their family, but they've never gotten to a point where they think on a much bigger level. They think of, man, how can the decisions I'm making today make impacts for the next 100 years? And if you think that, if you forced yourself to think outside of the next month or year in your life, to force yourself to think in a way to 100 years, your decisions will be made in a lot different light. You'll be exposed to things that will give you opportunities to where when those little bitty obstacles come around, like you just mentioned, Mark, it'll be like, that stinks, like number one rule is don't lose money. But at the end of the day, it's a small road, little traffic stop on the way to my bigger journey of where I'm going. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast as we broke down the curse of control, maybe having better expectations as an investor. If you did, take time to share this with somebody else who maybe is sitting there feeling out of control, and they need to start thinking about ways that they can get in control, and you can give them this podcast as a kind of a gift. We appreciate you for staying on. See you on the next episode. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.